On today's episode of the Weekly Monster Truck Podcast, join Zach, Ryan, and I as we discuss the latest in the monster truck industry.
So strap yourselves in.
Mash that loud pedal.
And get ready, because
Because
it's
it's
time
time
to
to
jam! Hello and welcome back to the Weekly Monster Truck Podcast. Hi again, everyone. I'm Jackson, also known as Monster Jam Historian. You can follow my social media at Monster Jam Historian on Instagram and Monster Jam Historian on YouTube. Today, I'm privileged to be joined by the podcast crew, Zach and Ryan. Guys, please introduce yourselves.
Hey there, guys. My name is Zach Romick. Some of you may have known me as Drop Silver Zero. It's great to be back on here for another episode of the Monster Jam Historian Podcast. Jackson, thank you for having me.
Hey, what's up, Monster Truck fans? You know, we back at it on the podcast again. Ryan back up in the studio.
And I am so glad because so much has happened. Well, in terms of results, not necessarily news, but in terms of results, there's been lots of things that's been happening. I know that me personally, I've been watching. I know, Ryan, you've been watching as well. It has been an action-packed week, and coming up this weekend, actually, it's going to be super exciting. So I cannot wait to get into it. We have two bits of news today. The first one is something that I didn't put down for my guests, but is something I thought would be pretty interesting to talk about, is the track for Houston. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I'll put a picture up on screen for those watching on YouTube. Is the track actually is different. So for those who watched the one that me and Ryan did last week, you'll know that we were hoping that the track would be different. Now that week has happened, unfortunately it wasn't, but I mean, in terms of the show itself, it was absolutely phenomenal, but we'll get to that. This week they have decided to do something different, and boy oh boy does it look different. Judging by the pictures, they have this interesting looking Chicago style track. It's really, really intriguing. It's still the red paint that they've been doing, but it's really different, and I must say I really like it. Now, we haven't seen a full track picture as of recording this, but hopefully by the time that this comes out, you would have already seen it, and if it's out when I'm editing this, I'll put a photo up on screen yet again, but nonetheless, the photos look so interesting. This unique looking take on Chicago style kind of reminds me of what they had in 2018. Remember, they had the two sets of jammers. They had the jammer that do the slap wheelies on, then they had I think they called it the transfer. So really unique that they've brought this back, especially for this time. And I'm curious to know what you guys think on the changes for Houston, because like me and Ryan said last week, we thought that if they did the same track, it would benefit Adam and Mentz in particular, because they were the ones that came out. But without spoiling you guys probably already know what's happened, but without spoiling it for later, we know what happened. But do we think that even despite the fact what we saw the weekend just gone, that is this track going to mess with these drivers? For the past 4 shows, they've been doing the same track. Do you think it's going to throw them off? And obviously it's going to be a challenge, but do you think it's going to be more challenging that they have something different, a different track to conquer?
Oh, I mean, without a doubt. I mean, listen, firstly, may I just add that they've definitely taken inspiration off of Riggs and some of their content creators, but that's beyond the point. Secondly, they've been off of Monster Jam for a while, and then they started bringing shows back in 2021. They've ran a very limited amount of shows in 2020, and same thing with 2021. However, we're getting more of a season, we're getting more events happening, and that's very good. It's great to see Monster Jam coming back, but they have been running the same type of track, the same style of track for a little bit now, and then all of a sudden, just for Chicago to come back out of nowhere, nobody was ready for this. Nobody was really prepared, especially not us at home. And now that it's happening, it's certainly going to bring these drivers. It's going to make them bring the best out of their system. It's going to make these drivers go at it a little bit harder, and I definitely feel as if that could mess them up because they might not be used to the Chicago style track like they once were before. However, it's it's going to be a great competition of racing, and I'm very excited.
And even though that the track was the exact same style, like you said, the floor was not the same at all from the first two shows to the third and fourth. The first two very tacky, even tackier than St. Louis, and that's saying something. And the second two shows, it was really slick, and it came into favor for people like Ryan Anderson and Cole Vennard, as we'll get to later. But yeah, there really has not been one definite track that the drivers have been able to stick to and stick their roots to. I think the only thing that we could see was in skills and freestyle, we were able to tell what drivers were doing the exact same thing, and we knew what trucks were going to come out and do what their strengths were. And now with this whole new track, like which you'll see in the picture, there's a mini flip in the middle of the track, which is very interesting. I'm very excited to see how that's going to come into play. But overall, I'm really looking forward to this weekend.
And one thing I did want to talk about that Zach talked about actually is really interesting is that, yes, it does seem to be, going around the Rigs of Rods community, obviously, I and Zach were very much a part of this. They seem to have taken inspiration from Rigs of Rods. And honestly, look, I'm not saying that they have. I'm not saying that they haven't. But what I am saying is if they do this in the future, I think that would be really cool. Because obviously the Rigs of Roads content creators that are making these tracks, which essentially some of them are based off of real-life Monster Jam tracks. If Monster Jam is looking at that and going, that looks like something we could put in real life, I think that would make competition so much more interesting. And again, I want to see the full track picture to go, to make my full opinion. But from what we've seen, it looks very interesting. And if they keep kind of giving this approach to track design especially, I think I think we could really get in a lot of great, there's already great competition, but to add on to that competition, to bring more competition and more exciting moments, I think with different track designs, especially track designs we haven't seen, not the usual standard, I forget what it's called, East Rutherford style, the oval style, and then the Chicago style, and the figure eight, all of that. If they start innovating and they start making new designs for us to watch and stuff, I think that'd be really unique. But nonetheless, the thing that I wanted to talk about the most is Arlington. That's right, Monster Jam is returning to Arlington at AT&T Stadium March 27th and 28th. It's part of the 2021 Stadium Championship Series. There are two shows on this, one on Saturday and one on Sunday. I'm going to read that out to you now. Interestingly, for the first time this year so far, there are going to be two pit parties. Currently, most of the shows have either had one pit party or no pit parties at all. This time, there's two, so there's going to be one at each show, which I find very interesting. I'm kind of looking forward to, not that I'm going to be there, but I'm kind of looking forward to this, at least providing that option for fans to get in and get those pre-signed autograph cards, which I think is still a good way of connecting with the drivers. So, yeah, the pit party for the March 27th show, which is on Saturday, opens at 4 p.m. The gates open at 5:30 p.m. and the start time is 7 p.m. The next day, on Sunday, the pit party will open at 12 p.m. The gates open at 1:30 p.m. and the start time is 3 p.m. So, of course, no lineup changes here, as I talked about, as part of the 2021 Stadium Championship Series. Same drivers. It's going to be unique. We've been to Arlington, obviously. Their first show back was at Arlington. It was a huge success, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Monster Jam can do back at Arlington. So, I want to hand it over to you guys. What do you guys make of this news? Are you guys excited to see Monster Jam back in Arlington for two action-packed shows, and are you guys expecting anything in particular?
Honestly, firstly, I wanted to say this during my point in Houston. Houston's going to be Houston's a bigger field than all the tracks that they ran at. Other than Arlington, AT&T Stadium has to be the biggest field that I have seen in a very long time. And it's massive. Just the stadium is massive, the field is massive, everything about it is so huge. And like they say here in America, Jackson, everything is bigger in
I
Texas.
was waiting for
So
that.
there it is. Yeah, so of course it's a huge field. And the fact that these fans can come out here not just for one day, but for both days and get all that driver experience, that driver to fan interaction, which is key because so many incredible moments, so many incredible stories for many people like myself can happen between those driver fans experiences. Like when I was at a local Monster Jam, or not a local Monster Jam show, rather, but rather four-wheel jamboree event here in my home state of Pennsylvania. I had a great driver interaction story with Cody Saucier where we were just talking, and then all of a sudden John Seesock just walks in because, hey, it's John Seesock. Um, and it's during times like those where it really makes you feel as a fan like, wow, this is incredible. It's great. I'm seeing all my favorite drivers up close, and it really lets you live out that dream. So it's incredible that that's happening. Now, to go into the competition aspect of things, it's going to be insane. You got the best of the best out there going for the championship event. And just the track layout of everything, it's going to be incredible. If it's going to be anything like this upcoming Houston show, I would personally love to see them run the same style of track that they're running on Houston. And I'd love to see it converted over into Arlington, see how that could play out. Maybe even changing up the track again from Houston. I'd be very interested to see how everything works out, and it's going to be incredible to see what these drivers could do.
Yeah, I'm just excited to get another show back. Just keep putting it's encouraging to see that Monster Jam is not tiptoeing around with their shows that they're putting out. They keep continuously putting them out, and I think they've been putting out new shows. Well, when they came out, they had a whole lineup, but I think the last 2-3 weeks now they've put out new shows.
Yeah.
So it's good to see that all the COVID protocols that they're going through they're working. So it's encouraging to see that we're getting more shows back, and I'm hoping that we can get more and more and more and start build that regular season back up.
And actually, it's funny you mentioned that. I did want to mention something. I found this on Facebook. Bari said something that really piqued my interest. In fact, I'm going to see if I can pull it up in my gallery because I took a screenshot of this. Basically, what he said is for those who've looked at the attendance, or when I say attendance, I mean looked at the crowds and gone like, oh, that kind of looks barren. He did say in a Facebook comment, if I can bring it up, he did say, yeah, here we go. He said, social distancing requires the crowd to be limited to 25% capacity. So I do want to bring that out that despite the fact that it looks like that there is not terribly a lot of people in the crowd, you're technically right. But the thing that I do want to talk about is that, like Ryan said, this social distancing thing about being limited to a 25% capacity, it's working because it's just something like, put it this way, right? If this wasn't working, if this whole social distancing thing at these Monster Jam shows wasn't working, they wouldn't announce more and more shows. Monster Jam isn't that sport where they're gonna put their fans at risk. They've made that very certain, and I think that's why they took it so long last year to do a show between March and... Oh, I just knocked my microphone. From March to October when Arlington was. So the fact that they're doing all these protocols means, like Ryan said, without repeating myself too much, that it's clearly working and they're clearly doing something right. So absolutely, and they have been adding them at a rapid pace. And like all of you guys have said, I'm really pumped to see Monster Jam back in Arlington and to see what they do with the track, and let alone how the rest of the series is played out, which I think is a good segue into the results, because boy oh boy, the results from last weekend, oh my goodness. I thought Houston show 1 and 2 was good. Man, show 3 was, I'm going to put this out there, show 3 was the best Monster Jam show I've seen in recent history, period. That is right. That was one of my favorite all-time shows by far, above and beyond. And show 4, a little bit of a letdown compared to show 3, but still a fantastic show. So I'm going to jump straight into the results. So here we go. Also, I should also say, instead of me losing breath midway through trying to read out all the results, you're going to hear Ryan and Zach give their opinions as well. So, I'm going to be reading out racing. So, let's start off with show number 3, Houston, Texas, NRG Stadium in round 1. Bakugan Dragonoid defeated Gravedigger. Great Clips Mohawk Warrior defeated Rage. Black Pearl defeated Avenger. And Monster Energy defeated Scooby-Doo. Here's where the jaws, I can't do it with my jaw, but my jaw dropped. It fell from my jawline to the floor because in round 2, Bakugan Dragonoid, Ryan Anderson defeated the previously undefeated in racing Adam Anderson and Megalodon. Adam went out in his first round. He got a first round bye. He got put up against his brother and he lost, which I think was pretty crazy. Moving on, Great Clips Mohawk Warrior defeated Overboard. Black Pearl defeated Max D Fire. Monster Energy defeated Zombie. In the semifinals, Bryce Kenny and the Great Clips Mohawk Warrior defeated Bakugan Dragonoid, Ryan Anderson. Black Pearl, Cole Vannard defeated Todd LeDuc and Monster Energy. And in the final round of racing, all the indie guys and all of Team Overboard was so excited because Cole Vannard in the Black Pearl defeated the Great Clips Mohawk Warrior. For the show, for the first racing event of the weekend, I don't know what to say. You know, Cole winning racing, that was insane to see. But the thing that I want to focus on more, and I'm going to bring this up, especially when we get to the statistics later on, is that Ryan Anderson in Bakugan snapped Adam's racing streak. He was 7-0 the previous week. He won both racing competitions, and he did not lose a single round race. He lost, technically, first round in show 3. And it's insane. But, hey, you never know what can happen, I should say. So, moving on to skills, I shall hand that over to Ryan.
Yes, Jackson, the Great Clip Skills Challenge in show number 3, taking the win. Tom Mintz and Max D Fire with a 9.638. Second place was Ryan Anderson, the Bakugan Dragonoid with a 9.255. Coming in third, Todd LeDuc and Monster Energy with an 8.449. And then falling out the rest of the pack, Bryce Kinney and the Great Clips Mohawk Warrior with an 8.233. Adam Anderson and Megalodon with a 7.439. Cole Vannard and the Black Pearl with a 7.265. Lindsey Reed and Scooby-Doo with a 7.113. Jim Kohler and Avenger with a 7.096. Barry Moosauer and Zombie with a 6.873. Jamie Garner and Overboard with a 5.900. Corey Rummel and Rage with a 5.711. And then rounding out the pack in last place, a very odd truck to see in this position, Christian Anderson and Gravedigger with a 3.897.
Alrighty, and then for our freestyle competition, of course, we have Tom Mentz sitting up top in the winner's bracket, behind the wheel Max D Fire with a 9.478, and then following him in second place, we have Monster Energy, driven by Todd LeDuc with a 9.347, very close to Tom, and then Jamie Gardner driving Overboard in third place with a 9.315. Hey, Zach, if you're watching this, tell your dad I said congrats. In fourth place, Ryan Anderson behind the wheel of Bakugan Dragonoid with a 9.283. And then to make up for what she lost in two-wheel skills, Kristen Anderson behind the wheel of Gravedigger coming in with a 9.178. And then Corey Rummel behind the wheel of Rage with a 9.125. And then a little bit low on the list, Adam Anderson with a very high score nonetheless, a 9.087. Then Bryce Kenny behind the wheel, the Great Clips Mohawk Warrior with an 8.699. Nice. And then Jim Kohler getting a little bit closer to the bottom of the bracket here. Jim Kohler getting a 7.941. And then Cole Vannard with a 7.453 behind the wheel of a Black Pearl. and then Barty Musauer with behind the wheel of Zombie with a 3.463, and then Scooby Doo with a 0.000. Not able to compete in freestyle competition. Very unfortunate. Or did she? Or did she just roll? I'm not too sure.
I believe she got shut off early, and she could not. She did not complete minimum time, so because of that, she essentially got a 0.
Yes.
This is a good segue into 2 points I wanted to make. Firstly, your overall event champion was Tom Mentz in Max D Fire. Tom Mentz adding on to his points that he had earned from the previous weekend. Oh my lord. The things that I wanted to talk about that you guys haven't yet, and this is where I get to ask you guys about what you thought of the show. A couple of things. Firstly, why I thought this was such a good show. The action is the first thing I wanted to talk about. The first thing I want to point your attention to, and Zach, you would have noticed just now because you just read out the freestyle order. There is, I'm going to quickly count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There is 8 trucks out of 12 had scores in the 9s. That is an insane amount of just scores in the 9s. Normally you only see like 1 or 2, maybe 3 or 4, depending on the event, or especially at least of this field, right? This field, normally you only get like 1 or 2, maybe 3. To see 8 trucks get a score of a 9 or higher is absolutely insane. And proving my point further, watching these live, to see literally every truck, with the exception, unfortunately, being Barry Musawa and Scooby-Doo, every other truck, minus those 2, unfortunately, had an insane run. Everyone, there was no moment and I hate saying this, but other than those 2 runs, which are the first 2 runs, other than those 2 runs, I was not bored. When I say bored, I don't mean like I'm just like sitting here just watching. Every single run, I was screaming, stomping, standing on my feet. It was an amazing show. I had a blast, and I wasn't even there. I was just watching a stream on Facebook. That show was just insane. I can't believe some of the stuff that happened there. Oh man, I don't even know where to begin. Todd LeDuc's amazing save. Tom Mentz had an amazing run. I don't even remember what happened in skills. There was so many awesome skills run. Ryan Anderson's bicycle to bicycle to bicycle. That was just, oh my... I don't know what else to say. Every single run was absolutely off the hook, and it was just insane. The other things I wanted to talk about too was that we kind of talked about this in the racing bit, was that Cole Vernard made such a comeback. I believe his racing record before this week was 0 wins to 2 losses. He's now increased that to 8 wins. Or 8, I think it's 8 or 7. I believe it's 7 wins. I think it's 8 wins. 8 wins to 2 losses. We'll get into the statistics in just a bit. And I don't know what to say. This show was absolutely insane. And the points that I just brought up, there's probably things that I've forgotten about here. Saves or moments from freestyles or skills runs that I've forgotten about. But this show just proved my point about what I was saying earlier about how this, in my opinion, is one of the best shows in recent history in Monster Jam. I was on my feet. That was an insane run. I can't believe that I watched that. That was insane. I'm going to hand it over to you guys. Is there anything that you guys would like to talk about in regards to Houston Show 3 that we just covered?
I mean, listen, to be entirely honest, you just took the words right out of my mouth. I unfortunately wasn't able to see all of the show. However, from everything that I have been able to see, it was a very, very solid show. The Gardner camp most certainly has to be very happy with how they performed that entire weekend. Credit to where credit is due. Everyone on that team absolutely deserves it. It was a great weekend overall. So great on those guys, especially Cole. Cole coming in, taking home the racing win. It was really nice to see. I always love to see a good indie camp taking out the wins, taking out the big boys over in Feld. So I always love to see that. And then two wheel skills on top of that. I agree. Ryan's bicycle to bicycle to bicycle. That was great. And freestyle was just filled with everything that you'd want to see. Like I said, I wasn't able to see all of freestyle. However, from everything that I have been able to see of freestyle, man, what a night. What a night. All of the drivers really needs to give themselves a big round of applause. It was just such a fun event. It was a fun weekend, and Houston did a great job. It was truly incredible. So if I was wearing a hat, I'd tip it to them because they deserve it.
The one point I did want to bring up is there was one moment in the scoring of freestyle that ever since the World Finals when Todd LeDuc's score was released and my mouth dropped when he did not take the lead, I could not believe that Jamie Garner and Overboard followed Gravediggers Kristen Anderson and got a higher score with no backflip. It was one of the smallest, most just jaw-dropping, like you said, Jackson, literally to the floor. I was just like, there is no way Jamie just took the lead. Like, I fully agreed. I was like, but I could not believe that they got that right. Like, I was like, okay, well, Kristen filled the time. She got a mini flip in, and she continued going after the mini flip. Okay, she's going to be likely one of the top dogs or the winner. And then Jamie has to follow that. I'm interested to see, okay, well, what is he going to do? Jamie Garner, typical style. He comes out and sends it the whole run. And that's something I've really noticed, and I think you guys maybe have too, is Big Air has really started topping backflips in this event. And the fans have been scoring runs pretty accurately. There's only been a couple times that I've disagreed. But overall, the fans in Houston have been doing a great job scoring. And I'm really hoping it carries on throughout the rest of this tour because I really don't want to see another situation like Stadium Tour Yellow where Camden got robbed multiple times. And to this day, I think Camden should have won that tour over Charlie Pocket. But I don't want to get into that.
I mean, there always comes down to those things where, you're so passionate for a driver and, all of that. And you want to see them take the series win. And, sometimes it doesn't happen. And it is what it is. Moving past that, absolutely, you guys brought up some great points. That show was absolutely insane. And I also wanted to touch upon what you said, Ryan, about how fans seem to be, as of recently, focusing on, what's it called? Big air over backflips. I kind of agree with you. It seems to be that the fans are focusing. I mean, we've known, or at least the super fans have kind of known for a while now, that backflips, they were a big thing back then because they were brand new. And then it kind of just became, who did the most, whoever pulled off a backflip, well, they win. And I think fans have kind of gotten sick of that. And now it's starting to get to a point where I think maybe drivers are starting to think, well, we want to do a good solid run. A backflip is a wow factor, but I think people, especially fans, are now getting more excited over this huge air, and maybe it's a change in culture. Maybe we're slowly but not noticing that we're becoming more and more, the thing that we're wanting to see more of is big air, these big air moments. I mean, it kind of makes sense when you think about it. I mean, Todd LeDuc, his big send at World Finals 20, and before then as well, including Glendale of 2019 and all the way back at World Finals 15. And we've seen these drivers doing it more and more. And it's that thing that people, I don't know, I think drivers just do it subconsciously. And I don't know. It's really strange. I like the point that you brought up. And I kind of want to put that I can't speak. I kind of want to put this to test tomorrow for us to see if that's still the case. And especially on the track for tomorrow. Because I don't know how the track is going to look, but it seems to be that they might focus on big air rather than a backflip, especially since I haven't seen a container yet, especially if there's a mini flip, because I feel like maybe the mini flip might put some drivers off and some drivers aren't going to go for it. Like, let's take Tom Mentz. I don't think Tom Mentz is going to go for it. So maybe he might opt out for, I don't know, some other place on the track. I guess we'll see. I'm going to move on to show number 4, the last show for the results. Moving on to racing. Round number 1, Overboard defeated Avenger. Max D Fire defeated Rage. Zombie defeated Gravedigger. And Megalodon defeated Scooby-Doo. Round number 2, Black Pearl defeated Overboard. Teammate versus teammate. The boss versus the employee. The employee came out on the top, being Colvinard in Black Pearl. Ryan Anderson, the Bakugan Dragonoid, defeated Tom Mentz in Max D Fire. Guys, I just thought of this just now. I was thinking about the Ryan beating Adam, but reading this now, he took out, Ryan, I'm talking about, took out the 2 competitors that were the best in racing the first week. He took out Adam, as we previously mentioned. Now, he's taken out Tom Mentz and Max D Fire. I think that's pretty impressive. Moving on, the Great Cliffs Mohawk Warrior defeated Zombie, and Megalodon defeated Monster Energy. In the semi-finals, Black Pearl defeated the Bakugan Dragonoid. The Great Clips Mohawk Warrior defeated Megalodon. And in the finals, Ryan made it back. I believe there were some problems with the Great Clips Mohawk Warrior because Ryan made it back to the final round of racing, and Colvinard in the Black Pearl defeated Ryan Anderson in Bakugan Dragonoid. So Colvinard took 2 racing wins from the weekend, increasing his racing streak, which we'll get into after we cover skills, freestyle, and the overall event championship. So I'm going to hand it over to Ryan to discuss the skills results from show 4.
Thank you, Jackson. For the Great Clips Skills Challenge, your winner was Ryan Anderson in the Bakugan Dragonoid with a 9.475. Coming in second, Tom Mentz and Max D Fire with a 9.254. And in third place, Colvinard in the Black Pearl with a 9.194. And filing out the rest of the pack, Bryce Kinney in the Great Clips Mohawk Warrior with a 9.168. Todd Leduc and Monster Energy with an 8.986. Bari Musauer and Zombie with an 8.538. Jim Kohler and Avenger with a 7.650. Jamie Garner and Overboard with a 7.386. Lindsay Reed and Scooby-Doo with a 9.475. That I do not think is correct. I think that's supposed to be a 6 or that's a 6. 6.475. Corey Rummel and Rage with a 6.387. And then after a crazy wreck in racing, Christian Anderson was not able to come back for the skills competition, did not record a score, as long with her brother, Adam Anderson, and Megalodon.
Thank you, Ryan. Firstly, the error with the Scooby-Doo thing. Let's remember here, an Australian made this, so it'd be upside down for him. Secondly, on to the freestyle competition with a big surprise here. Jim Kohler behind the wheel of the Avenger machine, taking the freestyle win with a 9.484. My jaw was dropped at that moment. How you guys are mentioning your jaw was dropped onto the floor. That was when mine was. But anyways, back onto the freestyle competition. We had the Great Clips Mohawk Warrior driven by Bryce Kenny with the 9.173 taking second place. And in third, Tom Mentz behind the wheel of Max D Fire getting a 9.056. Todd Leduc with a 8.992 driving Monster Energy, and Ryan Anderson behind the wheel Bakugan Dragonoid with an 8.903. Kristen Anderson able to come back and get an 8.899 behind the wheel of Gravedigger, and Jamie Gardner behind the wheel of Overboard getting an 8.893, very close in scoring here tonight. But Colvinard behind the wheel of Black Pearl not able to double down as he's going to get an 8.624. And Bari Musauer behind the wheel of the Zombie going to get a 7.430. And Corey Rummel getting a 7.220 behind the wheel of Rage. Again, scoring very close here tonight. But then you got Lindsay Reed behind the wheel of Scooby-Doo getting a 6.828. And Megalodon was not able to compete, Adam Anderson, of course, driving that truck, and he just wasn't able to make it out into the field after racing, and it was quite unfortunate.
And moving on to the overall event championship and the points, and talking about the weekend overall, and especially event 4. Your overall event champion was, for the first time this season, well, for the 2021 Stadium Championship Series, was Ryan Anderson and the Bakugan Dragonoid, surprising everyone in saying that. However, he did finish the best out of each driver. Of course, he came second in racing, he won skills, and he came fifth in freestyle, which earned him the most amount of points. Moving on to the points, I shall read it out for you. Tom Menson Maxi Fire is still leading with 123 points. Graceless Mohawk Warrior Bryce Kenny with 106 in second place. Bakugan Dragonoid Ryan Anderson in third with 101 points. Fourth place is Monster Energy with 93 points. Fifth place is Megalodon with 87, Overboard with 79, Zombie with 74, Black Pearl with 64, Avenger with 62, Gravedigger with 54, Rage with 51, and finally rounding out the pack is Lindsay Reed and Scooby-Doo with 38. Going back to freestyle, and Zach, kind of building upon what you talked about, yes, you weren't the only one, because my jaw dropped, because Jim Kohler put on an absolutely insane run with an insane save that was absolutely unbelievable. That was insane, and it was, I don't know, I kind of treat it as his, little jab back, for not winning the freestyle competition that I believe he should have won in Show 1. Show 1? Yeah, Show 1 in Houston, where most of the fans thought Connor, Ryan, and I included thought should have won the freestyle competition there. Nonetheless, he absolutely deserved the freestyle win on Sunday night, and he adds it to his, his list of wins for this year. Super impressed with Jim and his performance this weekend. Going back, Adam, unfortunately, his truck, man, I don't know what was up with it. Must have done some damage in racing, because he couldn't make it back for skills or freestyle, which is so unfortunate. It just burns me up inside when a driver can't make it back for competition. I feel so bad for Adam. And overall, guys, seriously, what a weekend. I was on the edge of my seat. This weekend had so many great moments. One thing I also wanted to talk about was Toddler Duke's second save. That's right. If you thought the save that he had on the first night was insane, which it definitely was, the save that he had on the second night was absolutely insane. At the end of his run, he did a bicycle, and then he looked like he just plonked the truck over, and we were kind of like, oh. And then he gasses on it at the last minute and saves it. And I was like, holy dooly, right? I almost said Ryan Anderson. Toddler Duke, you madman. Like, what are you doing, bro? Calm down. Chill. I don't want to lose my marbles, man. Come on. But, seriously, that was just, oh, man. The whole entire weekend was absolutely insane. And, guys, I'm going to hand it over to you before we get on to the statistics. And something else I want to add on that I want to keep doing each and every week. Guys, what do you think? Well, first off, what do you think of Show 4? What do you think of the points? And just what do you think of the weekend in general in Houston?
Listen, just like Show 3, what an event. Although, yes, I will agree with you, it didn't live up to the same expectation as Show 3. These drivers still went out there. They still threw down every single one of them. Phenomenal run after phenomenal run after phenomenal run, whether it was in skills or in freestyle. Racing was even a shock. Cole Bernard getting 8 wins overall this weekend. Phenomenal. You cannot write that. This is really just a weekend for all of us. It doesn't matter how many fans are in the show. It doesn't matter, because to sort of sidetracked a little here, the reason that Monster Jam had to run 5 shows for Salt Lake City is so that they can make up a portion of that money. Of course, they're not going to be able to run 5 shows in a stadium like Arlington or Houston, but Monster Jam had to make up that money, and they sold out on all 5 of those shows. So they were able to make up a little bit of the money, and they were able to put funding towards Houston and Arlington, and they were able to come up with a safe but also very unique and different style track like we have seen in Houston and like that we're going to see next week for Arlington. And it's just so exciting to have monster trucks back in general, and I'm really glad that we could see something like this. But to bring it back here to the main point about what we're talking about, Houston Show 4, phenomenal event. Jimmy Kohler taking the win. You don't often get to see it here in Monster Jam. You really don't. So if we remember Jim Kohler's infamous 2015 season where he just ran with 0 points the entire time, it sort of kind of reminds me a little bit of that. But, now that he has the win, he's got something to brag about. He gets to go into next week's event saying, hey, boys, listen, I threw down in Houston, and I'm going to do the same thing for next week here in Arlington. And it's going to be great. Just the freestyle competition keeps ramping up and up and up. And, guys, I'm really excited for next week.
I'm just excited overall for the next, this weekend. It's so much more just about now we got these drivers that they're starting to sink their tires in the dirt a little bit, and they're starting to solidify themselves in the points. And now we have more placing of where we think the points are going to stand for the rest of the tour. Now it's going to be about clawing up a position or two and not so much falling 3 places or going up 2 places or something like that. Now it's consistent time. Now you got to find what works for you. And I'm really excited for this last weekend in Houston to see what the drivers pull off on this new track and who's going to stay consistent, who's going to be able to take the top spot now. And I'm really looking forward to the end of this podcast because, I think Jackson's going to bring up, I think we got some bold predictions coming up.
Well, you would be right, but fortunately, but unfortunately, I do want to get into my second favorite thing, the statistics. Now, I had fun last week, but since then, I wanted to just provide an update on these statistics and who has good racing streaks. So I'm going to bring my trusty phone in, and I'm going to have a look at the spreadsheet. By the way, self-promotion time. For those wanting to take a look at the statistics in your own time, in the pinned comment and in the description, there'll be a link to the spreadsheet. You can check it out, each categorized by each week. There's a tab for each and every week, so you can see how each driver's progressed. You can look at the first week and be like, oh, Tom Mentor's really on top here, and then look at the next one and be like, oh, he kind of went down a little bit. I don't know. I wanted to provide this so you guys can follow along with the statistics and know about how each driver is performing and how they are how they're going about each week. So, without stalling any longer, let me get into this. Adam Anderson still has 4 racing wins to his name. His racing record has been increased to 17 wins to 6 losses, unfortunately adding 2 losses to his previous streak, which I believe was 17 wins to 4 losses. For those wondering, that was including the Salt Lake City shows, which is why some of these drivers, their racing records are a lot higher than others. He has 1 skills win, 3 donut wins, 0 freestyle wins, and 2 overall event championships. Moving on, I wanted to talk about, there was a specific driver I had in mind. Great Clips Mohawk Warrior? No. I think it was Todd. As he has 3 racing wins, he has 14 wins to 7 losses. He has 1 skills win, 0 donut wins, 1 freestyle win, and 1 overall event championship, and he's not far behind with 93 points. Tom Meents in the Max D Fire, almost catching up in terms of his racing record. He has 5 wins to 4 losses. He has 2 skills wins. He has no freestyle. Not freestyle wins. He has no racing wins. No donut wins, as donuts isn't a competition featured on the 2021 Stadium Championship Series. He has 1 freestyle win and 3 overall event championships, and obviously he is leading with 123. I believe Ryan Anderson also had a good racing win. Yes, he does. So, because of his impressive showing at show 3, Ryan Anderson unfortunately still doesn't have any racing wins, but his racing record, he is now outnumbered the amount of wins. He has 2 losses. He has 5 wins and 3 losses. He has 2 skills wins, 0 donut wins, 0 freestyle wins, and 1 overall event championship. And he is oh so close to catching up with, I believe, Bryce Kenny, who's in second with 101 points. And of course, Cole Vernard, I can bring up that statistic as I was trying to mention before. Yes, his racing record is 8 wins to 2 losses. He had 2 losses the previous week and 1 win in the first week. And now he's added 7 wins to that racing streak and no losses. That's really helping him out in the racing game. Of course, he has 2 racing wins, no donut competition wins, no freestyle wins, and no overall event championships. But you know that he is going to be a force to be reckoned with. Now, that is the end of the statistics, but this kind of plays in part to the next thing that I wanted to talk about, and what Ryan and I and probably Zach are looking forward to is the predictions. I made predictions last week. I'm going to bring in a couple of new ones, and I'm also going to restate the other ones. So, restating what I said last time, I'm still sticking with my gut feeling, and that gut feeling is, firstly, I believe it's Tom Meents, but alongside that, if I think the person who does the best this weekend in Houston, whether it be the person that's been the most consistent or the person that's wowed us the most, whatever, the person that is pretty much doing the best, and especially on top of points, which will probably still be Tom, is going to be the series winner because they've been racking up these wins in the same area. But at the same time, now knowing how much can change in between a week, I don't know, it's kind of hard to tell. So I'm going to put another bold prediction out there. I'm going to talk about who I think is going to take racing, skills, and freestyle in general. Just going to put bold predictions out there for both shows. I'm not going to specify which show. So without further ado, I think Ryan Anderson is finally going to take a racing win this weekend. For skills, I think it's going to be Tom Meents. He's been super consistent. And freestyle, my wild card is Toddler Duke. He's been due for a freestyle win this season. And with a new track and a new layout, I think I almost said Tom. Toddler Duke is going to rock the house. So, now that my predictions are done, I'm going to hand it over to you guys. Firstly, what do you think of the statistics that I brought up? How do you think each of the drivers that I mentioned are faring out? And secondly, I want to hear your predictions, and I think the fans do too. What are you expecting to come into the final week of Houston, which I believe there are 3 shows? So, I'm going to hand it over to you guys. The floor is yours.
Listen, this season, this whole championship series, it's been very hard to just predict. You can't just sit there and be like, oh, on paper it looks like this guy's gonna win, or it looks like this guy's gonna win, because every single week it's always something new. It is always something different. You are never ever gonna have, the same sort of thing come out, other than Tom Menson's skills, which is something I will agree with you. He has been running very consistently. He's been running very smoothly, and that is his game. Honestly, if everyone were to stop trying in skills, I think that'd be all right. However, this is where I'm going to start to make my bold predictions. So in racing, we have been seeing someone who's been consistently up there, but he hasn't gotten a racing win yet. At least I don't believe he has. And that is Bryce Kenny behind the wheel of the Great Clips Mohawk Warrior. I feel as if Bryce Kenny, he's been very much so improving on his skill. He's been very much so improving on every course better, and like he's gotten out there against guys, like Cole Vernard, Ryan Anderson, Tom Meents. He's been getting out there, and I feel as if Bryce Kenny might be able to pick up a win here. However, we are running onto a new style of track, so this could be very, very wrong. But Bryce Kenny is my bold prediction to win racing, and my not so bold prediction to win skills is obviously Tom Meents behind the wheel of the Max D Fire machine. Tom, that's been his game. He's been on top of it, and it's just all his. That Tom Meents is going to take that hands down. And for freestyle, I feel as if this is going to come into innovation, adaptation, and really just big air. You could go, like we've heard earlier from Ryan, you can go and you could have a backflip, you could hit the mini flip, you could do whatever it takes. But, if you go out there and if you just get big air, have tons of great momentum, solid momentum, then you could take that lead. It doesn't matter if it's from Kristen Anderson and Gravedigger to Jamie Gardner and Overboard. Back in the day, the competition used to just be, is it going to be Dennis or is it going to be Tom? Nowadays, you don't know who it's going to be. No one's going to know who's going to win because of the diverse field that we have. No one's going to know. And I know I'm rambling on a little too long here, so I'm going to make my prediction finally. I think it's going to be Corey Rummel behind the wheel of rage. Oh, you were not expecting that, were you?
That was very bold.
Buddy. Very, very bold. Corey's a great driver. Every time I've seen him on an indie show, he's gone out there. He's always wowed me. If it's not going to be Corey Rummel, then I'm going to make another prediction. It's going to be Jamie Gardner. I feel as if we're going to see something big from one of these two drivers. Jamie maybe a little bit more so than Corey, but we're going to see. It's going to happen. This is going to turn into Corey's breakout season, I feel like. I genuinely do.
Well, we have entered my favorite portion of the podcast. Here we go. Let me tell you what. Reminder a little bit of Jackson. My bold prediction from last week, I got 100% correct. My bold prediction from last time was Todd LeDuc was in 7th place on the tour last weekend. I said he was going to move up to the top 4. He is currently sitting 4th.
Well, look at you go.
So, now, I've been thinking about this for almost the entire podcast and a little bit of today because I wanted to make sure that my bold prediction, I could continue to go undefeated. This one is almost too bold to even be on the internet.
Oh, God. Here we go.
For a 3-show weekend, your boy Ryan is bringing you 3 bold predictions.
All right.
Number 1, this one's kind of a 2-parter. I think Bryce Kenny and Ryan Anderson, this is not really a bold prediction, but I think Bryce Kenny and Ryan Anderson are going to be the 2 duos to watch all weekend, like the battle, because as of right now, they're only 5 points apart. So I think they're going to be battling for that 2 and 3 spot. Oh, man, this is so risky. My bold prediction is number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and number 6. The order will not change after a 3-show weekend.
Ooh.
Tom stays 1, Bryce stays 2, Ryan stays 3. Bryce and Ryan that could mess me up, but I'm gonna stay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Todd stays 4th, Adam stays 5th, and Jamie stays 6th. That's my first bold prediction. Is it's gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Order's not gonna change after a 3-show weekend. That's gonna be hard to keep right. But number 2, my second prediction. I can almost guarantee the old Ryan certification of guarantee. Ryan Anderson will walk away from the weekend with it 1 double down. At least 1 double down, whether it's racing and skills, racing and freestyle, skills and freestyle, whatever it is. Ryan, I think this is going to be his weekend, and I can almost guarantee he'll walk away with 1 double down. Oh boy. And then for my prediction number 3. Oh boy. I think Bryce is going to squeeze the gap on Tom and make it less than 10 points. Because as of right now, I believe it is 17 Tom is up 17, and I think Bryce is going to close the gap a little bit more and make it like an 8 or 9 range. So it'll be really interesting to see. But I think if we're going racing consistently throughout the weekend, I'll go Ryan. Skills consistently, I got to go Tom. He does the same thing every time, and it works. You can't bet against that. And for freestyle, I think kind of what Zach said. I mean, you really don't know who it's going to be. I think it's going to be just a wild card. I think it's going to be a wow moment like we've seen from this past weekend. But that's enough of me. Let's close it out.
I just want to quickly talk about that because there is so much to unpack there, but I won't go too in depth to it because really by then I'd just be stretching out the podcast. So I'm gonna make it short and sweet. Firstly, I think bold is an well, okay, for the others, I won't say what I'm about to say, but especially for the first one, Ryan, I think bold for the first prediction was an understatement. Like bold doesn't
I
even
don't know, Jackson.
describe how I don't know. I mean, you're entitled to your opinion. And the other thing I want to say, finishing off what you have to say is, I almost don't want my predictions to come true. I want to see if you can do, except for, The Undertaker having a streak at WrestleMania, I want to see if you have, an undefeated streak of predicting things each and every week on the podcast. I don't want to say almost. I do want to see Ryan Zielsdorf have want to have a prediction streak, and it just be like the Undertaker's, where it's 21-0. That would just be sick. But anyway, guys, listeners, thank you everyone so much for listening. Remember, if you want to follow my social media, it's at Monster Jam Historian on Instagram, Monster Jam Historian on YouTube. You can also follow the official Weekly Monster Truck Podcast Instagram page at the Weekly at the Weekly MT Podcast on Instagram. This is my YouTube channel, which you can watch the video versions of the podcast where you get to see my face and everyone else and guests of their face. Or if you're out and about and you're in the car and you, going to a tour, maybe you're heading to Monster Jam. Maybe you're heading to Monster Jam and you want to listen to us. You can listen to it on Radio Public, Spotify, Anchor, all those places, Google Podcasts, so many great places to listen to, especially on your way to Monster Jam. Check us out. And as always, in Weekly Monster Truck Podcast, tradition, that's the word. I've gone so mind blank. We've been here for so long, but I don't mind. Guys, is there anything you want to shout out or plug before we close off today's episode?
Yeah, Jackson, you forgot our sponsor. This week's podcast has been brought to you today by Audible. Have you been down? Have you been wanting to read a good... No, I'm kidding. Yes. So, guys, thank you for coming out here to the podcast. It's always great to hear from you, hear your feedback. We love seeing all the comments and all that stuff. You guys are great. If you guys want to head over after this video, if you're on the YouTube, head over to Drops Over Zero's YouTube channel, Drops Over Zero. Go over there, check out some content. I may be making a comeback soon. Maybe not. Who knows? So go over, check that out. There might just be some new content. I'm waiting. Oh, there we go.
As this whole bold prediction thing has gotten out of hand, I challenge Jackson in this. If we get back on this podcast next week and the order has stayed the same, I say on the podcast Jackson has to do the Chucky dance. I'm saying it happens. If I can get the top 6 right, you'll be doing the Chucky dance.
I was scared it was gonna be something worse, but honestly, Chucky dance, I'll even do that for you now if you want. But because you said if wait, Zach, because Ryan used this to make me do it. If he is right, I'm gonna save the Chucky dance for when he gets it right. So I'm hoping I'm wrong and Ryan is right, because firstly, like I said, I want that Undertaker streak for Ryan's predictions. And secondly, I want to do a Chucky dance. But unfortunately, or actually one more thing I wanted to talk about, for those interested, I've been hosting a Rigs of Rods tour for quite some time, a Sim Monsters League, and it is coming to a close very soon. I'm going to be doing World Finals. Hopefully Zach will be competing. Ryan hopefully will be on the mic with me along with Zach. It's going to be a great old time. Make sure you stay tuned for announcements because I'm working furiously behind the scenes to get this event going. It's going to be super fun. We've got some great competitors, a crazy track that I've been making, and I'm just looking forward to it. You know, obviously when I'm not doing the podcast and I'm not spending endless nights constructing and doing the statistic sheets, I'm playing Rigs of Rods and I'm doing this tour, and I kind of owe it to the Rigs of Rods community because, you know, I'm just so much a part of it. I love doing it. And that is all from me. Stay tuned, guys. Great podcast content coming soon. Oops, excuse me. Great podcast content coming soon. We're going to be providing these weekly updates on the Monster Jam 2021 Stadium Championship Series. Also, I wanted to point out, I didn't get to say this earlier, make sure you follow the Facebook page for the podcast for exclusive updates on episodes and announcements. That's right. So it's not just going to be episode announcements and things like that. It's also going to be about the results and all that sort of thing. So you can keep up to date with that. You can also check out my Instagram and Ryan's Instagram, and obviously check out Zach's YouTube channel. And that is pretty much all from me. Thank you everyone so much for listening. Have a fantastic week. Keep on jamming, and hopefully Ryan proves me right next weekend. Take care, guys. See you later. Peace out.